just don't see that being the case. Running back probably is the spot where I think you'll see that more, because I just don't see how all three of Sampson or Wright and Small don't have, very sizable roles.
Jack, how excited are you for Jack Merklinger entering the fold here, and how surprised are you that he ultimately chose the Vols over situations where he could probably play right away in North Carolina after Drake May leaves?
Yeah, no, I was surprised, just, given the quarterback talent Tennessee has moving forward, and it's you could argue there's no path to the field if Nico's Nico for his first 2 years of college ball. Maybe redshirt's one of those. But yeah, I think it's a good land for Tennessee. It just shows that they're able to compete with the heavyweights and land quarterbacks now. And yeah, I think it's a good pickup for the Vols, and it gives you an insurance policy if Nico, gets hurt or anything like that. So you have a good backup now that will be here for the 2 years Nico starts.
Ryan, it's interesting. I was listening to 247 recruiting podcast on him yesterday because I'm not out here grinding the down south Savannah high school tape on all these quarterbacks. So for whatever reason, it feels like they have like 3 or 4 that have come out that have been just high profile quarterbacks down there. But what they said was super fascinating. I mean, I wonder from your perspective, do you think Heupel locked in on him because of this, and that being he's completely different than Nico. And his ability, like Nico's arm and his arm talent is the biggest thing. It's like if he puts it all together, then like he's going to be the best quarterback in this class and just be a superstar at Tennessee. If he puts together his natural ability and what he is able to do as a quarterback, versus Jack is just like, oh, he's going to do he's just a gamer. He wants the competition. He doesn't flash with arm talent. He's been a 4-year starter. He has a bunch of reps under him. He started as a true freshman. And it just seems like he's more of like the Jake Fromm option for Tennessee if things go awry. And Justin Fields is like the Nico, where it's like, that's my gut instinct, is like he has both versions where it's like, I have the safe quarterback now in the fold, and I have if everything comes together, we have a Bryce Young 2-year Heisman guy in the fold too. Is that a fair way of looking at it? Because I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good comparison, one I hadn't thought of before. And I think it's almost better that you have it flipped, because then the guy with the higher ceiling is getting the opportunity first. And a player like Merklinger, that's the type of game you want your backup to have. Like I'd rather have that for my backup than a big arm guy who's not very polished and maybe has a high ceiling in a couple years, but he's pretty far from that ceiling. Where Merklinger, I feel like the floor and the ceiling are closer together. Yeah. I think that's a good comparison, and I'm glad you brought up Georgia, because that's kind of what I thought about it. Is where it's like Tennessee, I didn't foresee them being able to land the big quarterback in this class because of bringing in Nico. I figured they'd add somebody. Certainly not a top 6 quarterback nationally, a top 100 consensus top 100 recruit, but that just shows how attractive Josh Heupel's offense is to play in, that you're able to stack highly touted quarterbacks in this in back-to-back classes, and it is pretty reminiscent of what Georgia did there for, a 3-4 year stretch where they were bringing in a 5-star just about every year.
I think that's the norm, right? Like we had this conversation, Jack, about if Tennessee builds Lincoln Riley East, USC Lincoln Riley East, is that okay for a lot of Tennessee fans? And I think this is another great example of the parallels between what Lincoln did at Oklahoma and now doing at USC versus what Heupel is building at Tennessee. Is just that like folks were wondering, like, could he bring in a top 6, top 7 quarterback year over year, especially when you have a guy, the number 1 on 3 quarterback and player as a whole in Nico, and he just does that, right?
No, yeah, that's very encouraging. And like I just said, recruiting this quarterback talent is encouraging for Tennessee. And I think that, going back to our conversation last time I was on here, is Josh Heupel, the Lincoln Riley for Tennessee. This is an indicator that it's trending towards that way.
That's good. I think that's the best case. I think that's a good place to be if you're Tennessee. So Jake Merklinger in the boat, and the 2024 class shaping up to be pretty fun. I mean, I was listening to Austin Price talk to him about it. Like, he was on campus last week with Wingo, I think, and Mike Matthews, alumni, Parkview alum, myself, and I'll do what I can to get Mike Matthews up here in Knoxville. But last thing on Vols recruiting, Ryan, how is this 2024 class shaping up with Jake Merklinger, JJ Harrell and company? Do you like what you've seen so far? And do you think what area position wise do you want to see pop up sooner rather than later?
Well, I think it's in a good spot right now, and it's certainly still in the early stages, just 6 commits, but 6 really quality guys. 5 of those guys are 4-star recruits. 3 of those guys are top 100. 4 of those guys are top 150. So it's a lot of high quality guys. I think that's what you have to like about it. Still in the early stages. Obviously, there's a ton of big names out there. We'll see how well they can hit on those. And I don't necessarily know if it's the sooner rather than later aspect, but the area that they need to hit, and we've talked about it a ton on here and elsewhere, is just they need to land some top offensive tackles. Like that's Glenn Ellerbe has not recruited particularly well at Tennessee, and that's kind of the one spot you look at that really concerns me. I guess running back they haven't recruited super well, but running back to me is a spot where it's like it's not. It's a dime a dozen. They got Dylan Sampson, who's been really good, and they got Jalen Wright, who's been really good, and they have Jabari Small, who's been good. And I don't think any of those guys were ranked in the top 700, let alone 4-star recruits. So I feel confident about their ability to get the spot talented guys and have plenty of production there. And they're going to recruit quarterback, receiver, tight end well on the offensive side. And I think everybody's been pleased with how they've recruited the defensive side of the ball as a whole. But when you look at the offensive line, particularly offensive tackle, because those interior guys we talked about it are a little bit of dime a dozen too. But those offensive tackles are the guys where they haven't landed elite guys. And I think that's kind of the one question mark when you look at this staff recruiting. And obviously kind of falls on Glenn Ellerbe's shoulders.
Jack, it is interesting, right? Like there's so much. I remember like after Jordan Marshall picked Michigan, and that was like a big deal. And he was someone that Tennessee fans obviously wanted. Like he was the highest RB on the board. And now it's like who is going to be the target? Who's going to be the next running back commit? Or why is Tennessee not able to get the 4 or 5-star running back in the boat when they're able to get everything else? But like the way I look at it, like you said, it's a dime a dozen. But also, I would rather have the big names. Like I'd rather have the Wingos than a Jordan Marshall. I would rather have Tennessee land the receivers, land the quarterbacks, land the offensive tackles than running back. I think that's the least important position of anywhere on Tennessee's scheme. In Tennessee's